when we exercise, we use anywhere from 25 to 40% of our muscle fibers, depending on what we're doing, boxing, playing tennis, working out in the gym. Maybe a professional uses up to 60, 70% of his fibers. With this application, you use close to 90% of all the muscle fibers, depending on what you're doing. It becomes very efficient. And in doing so, it allows you to condense a workout, which you would normally do maybe an hour of working out in the gym, in about 20 minutes.
Welcome to another episode of the Doctor's Podcast with Rabea Akram. I am Rabea Akram. I'm a medical doctor and entrepreneur. And in this podcast, I interview other medical doctors, worldwide leading experts, and I bring you their stories and their formula for success. And today I have Dr. Shapiro with me. Dr. Shapiro is an American board-certified general surgeon. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a research scholar, and he has extensive experience and knowledge regarding physical health and fitness. And today we're going to be talking about everything fitness and health. So, Dr. Shapiro, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here.
So, can you please tell us about a little bit about what you do?
Yes, for most of my career, I was a general surgeon. I practiced in Los Angeles at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and at UCLA. About 15, 20 years ago, began to develop some business interests. Initially in the laparoscopic field, started a small company on several of my patents and have remained interested in business ever since. About 2-3 years ago, I along with my colleague and CEO Charles Laverty, looked at a technology that interested me a great deal and got very involved in that, and presently very involved in that technology and its implication for fitness, rehab, and even some medical issues, which I hope to investigate in the next year or two.
Awesome. Can you please tell us a little bit about what technology it is that caught your attention, what you're working on?
Yes, this is something that is outside of my field, but I've gotten very interested in it over the past several years, and it involves electrical stimulation. And basically, we focused on electromuscular stimulation, which has been around quite a while, actually. And if you look at some of the history of the interaction with electrical stimulation and Homo sapien, you'll find it back almost 2,000 or 3,000 years with the Greeks and the Egyptians. They used to stand on eels to kind of manage their sore feet. More recently, in the modern era, we've used the TENS unit, transcutaneous neurostimulation, and that's been used for about 40 years in many of the rehab hospitals and outpatient centers, because that unit focused on basically electrifying some of the afferent nerves, which took pain away, and so that was part and parcel of various therapies depending on the malady. This technology really is a takeoff of some of the earlier work that's been done. And it uses electrical stimulation, but at levels that are different from what had been used heretofore. And by using different frequencies and using a little AI, this technology, I think, has a tremendous application in that which this company, I belong to a company called Nuzuna, is focusing on, and also more broadly in about 8 or 9 medical illnesses that are really quite serious. So with that in mind, we are right now focusing on fitness, which is really quite remarkable, rehab, physical therapy, and we'll be moving into the medical field probably in about a year or two. And I can describe, do you want me to describe what these
Absolutely.
changes are? Well,
Would love that. If you could just, if you could give us a little bit background on how the electrical stimulation, how this technology works, for non-medical folk to understand what is it that goes on within the muscles and why does it help, then we can move on to the different application sides of it.
that'd be great. Well, this number one, it has to be user friendly. If you don't have a application that is not comfortable for clients or patients, it won't be used. So the application itself is contained within a very comfortable suit, which is bielastic and very similar to Lululemon, very comfortable to wear. The whole bodysuit includes right now 20 electrodes, which are on all the major muscle groups. This is attached to a small, actually it looks almost like an iPhone that attaches to the hip, and by Bluetooth is attached to basically an iPad. So this particular innovation uses frequencies from 200 to 500 hertz. We can change the application, but most importantly, as you are either exercising or whatever you're doing with the suit, and the suit is very efficient, I'll come to that in a second, data is coming back from your muscle to the artificial intelligence, so that when the electrical stimulation is stimulated, it knows exactly how much electrical stimulation we should have. It understands the muscle, whether the muscle is dehydrated, how many of the fibers are being energized, and so it really is it's a to and fro application, and in doing so, it becomes very efficient. So not only are the muscles stimulated in a way that you can't really do on your own. For example, when we exercise, we use anywhere from 25 to 40% of our muscle fibers, depending on what we're doing: boxing, playing tennis, working out in the gym. Maybe a professional uses up to 60, 70% of his fibers. With this application, you use close to 90% of all the muscle fibers, depending on what you're doing. It becomes very efficient. And in doing so, it allows you to condense a workout, which you would normally do maybe an hour of working out in the gym, in about 20 minutes. Mm. And because it's that efficient, patients, clients, clients, if you're in the fitness area, have really control of their time. They can also do this wherever they want to. They can do it in the home, doing sit-ups. They can do it in the hotel room. They can use it with their Peloton or with other vehicles, other specific exercise vehicles. They can do it playing tennis, playing golf, running. So because you're untethered, and because this is such an efficient way of enhancing exercise, it becomes incredibly powerful for fitness. On the rehab side, it's probably even more effective, because the other area of stimulation is as a byproduct, it stimulates some of the autonomic nervous system. So not only are you stimulating your muscles, but you're also allowing changes in blood vessels, changes in blood flow, both on the arterial side and the venous side. Actually, there's been some work, although the work wasn't done on the frequencies we use, but on higher frequencies, I think at 125 hertz, to show that it can actually change a red cell to make it a little thinner, to kind of get into the smaller capillaries. Really kind of cool, actually. Mm-hmm. That's all in vitro. But combining all this, it makes for a very effective way to rehab a bad back, a bad shoulder, a bad elbow, whatever the malady is that the physical therapist is working on. This enhances that capability. And because it becomes so efficient, the rehab really twofold. Number one, it's more efficient, and number two, you decrease the time flow of getting that patient back to full activity. So in the rehab and physical therapy area, I think, to my mind, anyway, that's one of the most exciting areas that I see as a physician.
You mentioned that this technology, people could be doing it while they're driving or while they're doing their sit-ups at home. So do I imagine this to be a wearable device, something that people can actually buy and use it on their own? So could you tell me a bit about that?
Yes, it is a wearable device. I would not recommend using it when driving. I would recommend doing it with just about any other activity: walking, running, playing tennis, golf, exercising. And yes, you can purchase this online. There are several models of this technology. The model that we use in the gym and in rehab is quite sophisticated. It has 32 programs. It has a very nice brain to it. The model that we have at home is quite excellent, but it's certainly a step down from what we use in the gym. But can be just as effective if used properly.
Right. So, the rehabilitation side of it is you as a medical doctor, you said that that's what excites you the most. So what are the potentials for rehabilitation with this technology?
Well, from my perspective, this can be used with just about all rehab for major muscle groups, and can be used in any facility, whether it's a hospital like Cedars-Sinai, UCLA, or whether it's the many thousands of outpatient PT units that we have, certainly in this country. And it can be very effective. And not only effective, but also, as I said before, could kind of shorten the time that we get patients back to normal health and mobility.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you already mentioned that it kind of engages more of the muscle than we usually engage, like up to 90%. And if I recap, like, does this create more muscular metabolism? Does it increase the blood supply? Is that how it works? Could you please explain that a little bit more to us?
Right, because we control both the frequency and the amplitude of the stimulation, we can be very effective in engaging the muscle. The side effects of the stimulation is that we do change the blood flow. And one of the interesting observations also is that on the venous side, we actually can increase the venous tone, probably decrease thrombophlebitis and increase cardiac output that way, because we actually are getting more blood to the heart. So it works in many ways, and we are just beginning to discover some of the cytokines and some of the other chemicals that that come part and parcel with this type of therapy. One very important part, which I really haven't tagged on, and that is because this technology has a brain, we can actually balance the muscles. So, for example, somebody with a low back who has sciatic scoliosis, one set of muscles is contracting, the other set is relaxed. This suit actually finds a way to begin to balance those muscles out. And so in the case of sciatic scoliosis, instead of waiting 3 to 4 weeks to kind of get that back to normal, we probably can do it in a matter of days. And for fitness, it's really interesting as well. By the 3rd or 4th episode with the suit, patients are really begin to notice a significant difference. And we've seen that with we've probably had over 1,500 to 2,000 patients in the last year or two. So it gets our clients really motivated to continue their physical fitness. Two side parts actually. We've noticed that there's a significant loss of weight, even for patients or clients who do not change their diet. In Germany, they ran a study with almost 4,000 women aged 18 to, I think, about 65. And the average weight loss was about 17% of their body weight. It was really quite impressive. We're seeing that here as well. There's also a side effect for women in that we see improvement in cellulite, and that, especially the thighs and the lateral legs. We think we have an explanation for that, but that's another observation that we've made. So there are some cosmetic aspects of this as well,
Right.
Both for men and women.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have a solution for cellulite, I mean, who wouldn't love that? That's amazing. That's good news overall, I think. Tell me, like, it's going to reduce the amount of exercise time for me. And how is this different from, there is the regular electro stimulation in the muscles that has been around for quite a while. And you are implementing AI you're throwing in AI in the mix so that it's an intelligent system. It's going to measure your bodies. It's going to measure the electrical stimulation and the activity of the muscles itself. How does that work? Could you explain that a little more?
Yes, it works in a way that's really interesting because this is just not a one-way system. In other words, we're going from the electrical source, here it's a battery, to your muscle. Those fibers those pads that we have on the muscle work the other way around. So it's because it is such an intelligent system. It's accumulating data on hydration, on the amount of fibers that are going on, a whole host of factors that then go back to the central computer, which is in the hands of your trainer. In physical fitness, we can train independently 8 people at one time. And there's another system that we have, which is a little less sophisticated, which can train almost 30 patients at a time. So it becomes very efficient if you want to do on the fitness side, if you want to do a class or if you want to do a more personal workout, you have your option to do so. So this is just the beginning as well, because there's a lot of work that's being done right now to enhance the system in a way to give you a lot of additional information. For example, a rhythm strip, your PO2, blood pressure. So not only are you working out, but you're getting a lot of modalities which are accumulating and can be sent to your physician, your physical therapist. So all this data that accumulates from your muscles, your workout, is analytical in a sense and can be emailed directly and actually on spot of time to your physician if he's interested. Very much like some of the cardiac monitors we use with patients with arrhythmias, that a physician can actually look at right away as it's happening. So this has that capability. There's there are a number of applications. The one that really intrigues me, the one that really intrigues me is on the medical side, and I'll speak to that in a second. But the other thing that intrigues me is that there are tremendous military uses. Although I'm kind of a pacifist, I like people going to the military to be in good shape. Right now in the Marines, when the average recruit works out, I think they drop a percentage of anywhere, I think it's between 8 and 15%. That costs the government an awful lot of money because they've started that treatment. We would like to start a program where we take a couple hundred recruits, put them in the suit. We put let the other 100 or so work out on their own. And we think we can drop that, we can reduce the dropout rate by anywhere from 50 to 75%. We're convinced we can do that because this is such an effective way of getting people into shape. The other thing that we've noticed and I think we've noticed this with all exercise, especially with the endorphins flowing through the body, that you really begin to watch what you eat as well. As you try to get into shape, you try to eat properly. You may start meditation. You may the children may not bother you quite as much when they go screaming around the house. You have a way of have a calming influence. And we've certainly noticed that. So the suit actually adds to a lifestyle that is much more effective, much healthier, and I think will make any of us who use this kind of technology better human beings in many ways.
Right, right. Tell me about tell me about the research side. Like, what made you're a physician who has had like several decades of experience, working with in general surgery, like, right? So
Yes.
what made you take this path? What made you interested in the research and the, tell me about your journey and story.
Well, in short, I got very interested in general surgery many years ago. I'm really not going to tell you how long ago. And around 1990, got very interested in laparoscopy and began to develop tools to make laparoscopy and thoracoscopy more effective. Started a company at that time and really enjoyed the business part of my life. I began to slow down a little bit on the clinical side of my life, lectured all over the world about laparoscopy. We were doing cases in France, Israel, Japan, showing people how to do certain procedures with some of the tools that we had. And then retired from surgery about 2008 and began to get very interested in molecules and genetics. And when this came along, it was a whole new area for me. And I just found it fascinating because I thought some of the early work here with these kinds of frequencies showed that it might be helpful in Parkinson's disease. It might be helpful for osteoporosis. It could be even helpful for some of the autoimmune diseases that we have. Certainly, we've seen significant improvement in female incontinence by improving the pelvic girdle. Same with fecal incontinence. So it had a whole host of potential medical applications, which I found very interesting. So for me, this company had two areas of interest. One, a business interest, which I enjoy. I always find that interesting. It opened up a whole new area that I didn't know much about, both physical fit. I mean, I've always tried to exercise, but truly, but compared to what these guys do, I was doing nothing. Physical fitness, rehab, and another side of the company, which I really am very excited to explore on the medical side. We have now about 5 or 6 patients with intermediate Parkinsonism, for example, that I literally revert their gait from that Parkinson gait, that shuffling gait that we see, to almost normal. And as these patients get treated every 72 hours, they kind of keep a normal gait. Their tremor is also reduced anywhere from 25 to 40%. Well, this is a very exciting modality to do that, along with drugs and some of the surgical procedures that these patients go. We also found recently patients with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. Now, we can't change the disease, but what we can do is, as we put them in a suit, we can make their decline much more comfortable, where they can't get out of bed. Now they can get out of bed. So in that regard, it's an adjunct to that disease. We have a patient with IPF, with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which was treated. That patient was treated at Cedars. The biopsy was done at Cedars. The physician is one of the world's expert in that disease. I mean, he was in the suit for 2 years, and his lung disease has not progressed. Matter of fact, it's improved. So these are anecdotal areas that we've observed that we will be investigating, with an IRB at several institutions. Cedars is one, University of Tampa, University of Texas. We'll be negotiating with probably with Stanford. So we will start studies to look at some of these areas that this type of technology and the technology that advances from this as we go forward, and seeing how we can affect some of these illnesses using electrical stimulation one way or another. And it all flows from this suit.
there has been like the electrical stimulation of muscles for treatment purposes and now also for fitness purposes has been around for a while. Do you see long-term study results or data for longitudinal studies that can kind of give us a idea about whether there are any kind of side effects or anything that we should be concerned about? What is your take, as a research scientist, what's your take on that?
Well, you're absolutely right. We've had about a 50-year experience using various electrical stimulation to both muscles and nerves, and that data is in. There really are no ill effects. These frequencies have only been used anywhere from 8 to 10 years, starting a number of years ago, about less than that, probably about 6 years. We do not anticipate any ill effects. We've certainly not seen any thus far. We've only seen these positive effects, and we'll be following our patients very carefully. But there's no reason to think that these frequencies would have any additional adverse effects, because we see them almost immediately. We can look at it both in vitro, and then we just move over to in vivo, and we really don't see any adverse effects, and we don't anticipate but we certainly are looking for them.
Out of scientific curiosity, I would like to know what are some of the things, some parameters that you look at when you do those in vitro studies, for example?
Well, the in vitro studies are not being done by us. These are done by scientists around the world. We're just kind of accumulating that data. What we're looking for in vivo experiments, which we really haven't started on the medical side. We've made observations, as I've laid out, on several illnesses. The only data that we have is on osteoporosis from the University of Tampa, where it's a very small series, and within 3 months we noticed a 1 to 3% increase in mineralization of the bone. We're very excited about that, but it's a small study. So the company itself is relatively young, and as we get the funds it's very expensive to run these studies, as you well know. They're all ready to go. We've developed these strategies and the principles of what we want to show one way or the other. We'll be pulling that trigger. But like anything else, it takes money, and with a young company, the company really has to focus on that area which brings in revenue, so that we can continue to grow. But I suspect we'll be starting this in about a year. But the observations have been really interesting, very interesting, and consistent.
Anecdotal observations.
Again, anecdotal, but interesting.
Absolutely. Talking about the company size, you're an entrepreneur, you're a medical doctor. I myself am a medical doctor and an entrepreneur, and I find it fascinating, your journey, like being a serial entrepreneur. You have been involved in so many different companies and technologies and innovation. What is your advice for someone, a medical doctor starting out, and also having these multiple interests and passions in innovation, in entrepreneurship, and also the medical side? How do you have any advice?
I do. I would say this, that the main focus of anybody going into medicine, whether he or she is specifically interested in an all-encompassing field. For example, in my case, general surgery was all-encompassing. Unfortunately, in my generation, my family suffered because I wasn't around. I was working 24/7, but it was all in. The newer my daughter, who happens to be a physician, has a much better balanced life, and so I would take her experience, which is to focus on your specialty, become as good as you can, make sure that your patients are getting the very best care that you can give. And once you've achieved that goal and you have outside interests, there's always time to pursue it. And I pursued my business interests as my practice was beginning to slow, because when I was in full bloom of practice, I was one of the busiest surgeons in West LA, and I really didn't have time. I wouldn't have had time to pursue it. But as my practice began to decline and I had time, I was interested in all this stuff, especially in laparoscopy. I was able to pursue it, and that would be my advice. My advice: the new physician, not new, but the physicians in this generation, and I kind of speak. I look at my daughter's friends and what she's doing, have a much better balanced life, family life, professional life, social life. And once you have that balance, you then have all kinds of time to pursue something that interests you. And I would absolutely encourage that, because it enriches your life. And potentially, and I look at the number of physicians who've made great advances in both medicine and even non-medicine. And you never know where you have, a physician who's the next Bezos, or I don't want to use Gates because he's having a bad week, but people that really have changed the world. And there are physicians out there who can do that kind of thing. For the rest of us, you do the very best you can.
Right. Love that. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having this conversation with you. When people want to learn more about your work, where can they find you? Is there any way, they can connect and engage?
Yes, you can get me at my email. It's Stephen, STEPHEN .Shapiro, SHAPIRO at Nuzuna, NUZUNA fit, FIT, all one word, .com. And I'd be happy to communicate with any of your listeners.
Thank you so much. We're going to put all the links in the descriptions. Thank you once again, Dr. Shapiro. It was such a pleasure.
Pleasure. Very nice meeting you.